Hello and welcome to the Real Story of Autoimmune Disease Summit. Discover the unspoken causes of autoimmune disease in the body and the impact your emotions have on your healing. I'm your host, Roberta Tati, and today it's a pleasure to have here with me Sue Hitzman. Sue Hitzman is an internationally recognized neurofascial science and research educator, manual therapist, exercise physiologist, and founding member of the Fascia Research Society. She is best known as the dynamic creator of the MELT method, a pioneering self-care technique that eases and prevents pain while boosting performance. The method became the topic of her New York Times best-selling book, The MELT Method, and its 2019 follow-up, The MELT Performance, or MELT Performance. Sue has been featured in Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, Rachel Ray, CNN, Golf Magazine, Runner's World, and much more. Today, she's going to talk about the role of fascia in autoimmune disorders. Hello, Sue. Welcome here. I'm so glad.
Thank you, Roberta. So nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to start off by, if you can share a little bit of your story and how about chronic pain and how did you create the MELT method?
Yeah, well, I mean, MELT actually spawned out of my private practice. I was trying to get out of my clients out of my office a little bit faster. And a client had said to me, if you could just invent a way for me to do to myself what you do with your magic hands, I'd stay out of your office. And it became a real challenge, you know, like, is it possible to do light touch therapeutic intervention on yourself? And then how would you do that? And what tools would I need? And it was, you know, a good 6-year process of just developing soft tools that were much more akin to light touch therapy. And, you know, I always say soft tissue likes soft objects. You know, we like a soft touch to activate soft tissue. And so that's where it was. But my pain journey started, I was in fitness for most of my life. Since I'm 16, I was in the fitness industry. And at 28 years old, I woke up one day and the bottom of my foot hurt me. And I thought at first I stepped on a piece of glass. And I did what most people do. I ignored it. I mean, again, I just thought it was like something. And I remember like taking a magnifying glass to my foot and trying to figure out what it was. But what started out as plantar fasciitis turned into this body-wide fatigue and ache to the point where I was crawling to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I sought out some help from doctors. I was getting MRIs and CAT scans. One doctor said, you know, it might be lupus, it could be fibromyalgia. We need to do more tests. And I just thought they're missing something here. And that was really what sent me out of the fitness industry and into the healing arts. And what the common thread in most healing arts was connective tissue, was fascia. And that kind of took me into a deep dive into what fascia is and how it played a role in my pain. And that's, again, a culmination of how I developed the MELT method.
Okay, so since you're talking about fascia, could you explain to us and to the audience what is fascia? And the role of it.
Yeah, I mean, fascia is the most abundant material in your entire body. It is the stability system of your body. Under your skin, if you look at fascia with a microscope, it literally looks like flexible scaffolding. It's primarily made up of collagen and hyaluronin and what we call ground substances. So these proteoglycans, glycoaminoglycans, kind of fancy terms for sort of proteins and carbohydrates that kind of are mushed together into this gel-like substance. And there's no separation in this tissue. Of all of the systems in the body, fascia has been the least studied, except in the past, you know, 15, 20 years. And it's the least understood because we call fascia a tissue. We call it fascial tissue. But now we're really looking at fascia, and Robert Schleip, who is one of the most informative fascial researchers, coined it as the largest sensory organ in the body. And I would even take that step further, and I would say it's a system. Mm-hmm. It is a system in and of itself. The cells of fascia are your healing cells, and these cells are doing a lot for us, tinkering with this fascial matrix to keep everything under your skin stable. So fascia plays a lot of roles. It's what keeps your skin kind of lifted and looking young, even when you get into your 50s and things. It gives you joint shock absorption, gives your muscles synergy and balance. And in fact, on a cellular level, fascia is defined as the extracellular matrix. And so it's the fluids outside of your cells that support every cell, blood vessel, and nerve in your body. So when we say stability, I would say, I'm not saying that fascia is like the system that stabilizes you on a Bosu ball, but it does. But it's really, when I say stability, I mean all levels of stability: emotional, psychological, chemical, neurological, physical. I could link fascia to every concept of stability when you speak about the human form. So it's a very important tissue to understand and to realize that it plays a role in everything from performance to pain to longevity.
Yeah, wow. And it's so interesting that it's such an important role all over the body, and it covers everything. It's everywhere. And
not only does it cover, it's infused.
Yeah,
Infused into everything. It literally, there's no separation in it. If we removed everything else in your body, including your skin, but we left all of the connective tissue under the skin, you would see the entire formation of the human body. You would actually see the outlines of every nerve, blood vessel, and cell, right? Because it is what is giving cells their shape, is the extracellular matrix. The cells are pushing against the collagen to sustain their shape. So yeah,
I could say, so it is what is holding everything together.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people have the idea still that fascia is just related to muscles, and to have this concept is much, much bigger and important, so that we can understand, how this influence everything. I work a lot with people working with the emotional side, and then you can see how one little word, one little thing, you can feel the body contracting and the fascia tighten. I say the fascia is tightening, and they are not even aware when this is happening. And
sure, yeah, like people come into your office like this and they're like, I don't know, my neck is killing me and I'm not sure. I'm like, my neck is killing me looking at you right now. You want to just relax your shoulders? And they're like, oh. Were my shoulders just up in my ears? And that's it, is we actually don't sense and feel sometimes consciously what's going on. But the beauty of fascia is that it's actually a very adaptable, malleable system. When it's in good condition, it's very quick to adapt. But when we do have physical trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, it can impact the tissue itself. And the tissue does, I love Besser van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score, right?
Yeah.
And where does the body keep score? I really feel like the fascial system, I always say in Chinese medicine, they talk about qi and jin yi, which is, like the fluids and the essence of the body.
Essence, yeah.
I would dare to say, I'm so bold as to say that fascia is the chi of our body. It is the frequency that is emanating outside of us and also vibrating within us that connects every person. So it's important. It's important to consider it beyond myofascia. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're talking about the role in resilience and stability and longevity. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think I also want to explore the 4 R's that I read in your book. Sure. If you can talk about a little bit that, I think would be great.
Yeah, I mean, the fascial resilience, fascia, what recent science has really started to reveal is that daily living causes an issue in our connective tissue. And that issue is an adaptation in the fluid perfusion, the fluid flow in fascia. And the fascial system, actually one of the major systems that it supports is the lymphatic system. Your lymph lives in the fascial matrix. And so as we age, as that fluid abundance starts to slow down, where I call it stuck stress in the body, and where stuck stress loves to accumulate is actually in the spaces of our bodies, in our joints, which is why when you sit for long periods of time, you get up and you feel like you aged 40 years because your joints don't work as well when you get up as they do when you sit down. Or you wake up in the morning and you feel as stiff as a dried out sponge left out overnight on your kitchen sink. I always use these metaphors because it really gets you to understand that when, if you think of connective tissue like a sponge, when a sponge is hydrated, you can compress or bend it and pull it. And when you take the tension or compression away from a sponge, it bounces back to its original shape. And that's part of the elastic property of fascia. Fascia has that same component. But when a sponge is dehydrated, you bend and compress it, and it doesn't move or adapt very quickly, and it certainly does not go back to its original shape. And much like a moist sponge can absorb water more abundantly than a dried out one, as we age, a lot of people say, I don't want to drink a lot of water because the more water I drink, I pee more. And I'm saying that's actually a misnomer. That's not true. If you sipped water more frequently through the day, your cells would maintain their abundance, their hydration, their resilience. And that's what we lose, is the absorption rate of the fascial tissue as it becomes too stiff, and it loses the balance, or what we call tone, between the stiff and elastic properties of fascia. That's what really causes a lot of the symptoms that we associate with aging. And one of the biggest components that people don't talk about enough, and I love Dr. Maggie Yu, who's, I think, a pioneer in hormone balance, is, the gut is fascia, right? Inside of our gut, there's fascia. And the impact that our daily lives have, the poor nutrition, the lack of prebiotics, probiotics, actually alters the contractility of and the motility of our gut. And this is one of the things that increases our chances of autoimmune issues, for sure.
Because it causes more inflammation, and autoimmune disease is inflammation.
Bingo.
And sometimes people think I'm eating right and what is going on, but they are not even absorbing what they are eating. So if they are not absorbing, it's much, I always say it's much deeper than that. It's much deeper. Also, you can see like I lived in Japan for 12 years. And in Japan, they have a saying, oh, it's the 50-year-old shoulder. They already talk about in this way, the 50-year-old shoulder is the 50-year-old shoulder, because it's assumed that you're 50-year-old, you will have a problem with your shoulder.
Well, and women more than men, right? I mean, this is an intriguing thing of hormone balance, and how fascia also plays a role in hormone balance, right? In our superficial fascia, that stuff under the skin where, people hate that area because that's where the fat is, but the fat has hormones in it, and the fascia is what's actually helping to mobilize those hormones and move them through the matrix and get them into the lymphatic system, because the lymph system, we have so much lymph in our superficial tissues that if the fascia within that superficial region of our body is impacted from daily living, we're not keeping the supple qualities of that tissue. That's what's impacting the lymph system, and that's the origin of low-grade inflammation. People think it starts in your gut. It starts in the fascia, it starts in the lymph, and then it goes into the gut, right? So it's a backward idea, I think, and we need more research on this. But what I know for sure is, when I have clients who have a lot of emotional trauma, they have autoimmune issues. When you start to work with MELT and you get the hormones regulated, and I don't mean by taking hormone replacement, I mean really just cleaning out what you're saying, like get the absorption back into the gut, it's life-changing for people. And women for sure, because estrogen is so volatile in the body and it changes so radically every month. But then of course, again, when you get into your 50s, all of a sudden you're like, why is my skin more dry? Why all of a sudden?
Different change.
Right, I think I'm going to get a bladder infection, but none of these things are true. It really is just the dysregulation of estrogen, and you can really make a tremendous impact with that. People need to learn more about that, and it really does originate through fascia in the gut.
Yeah. So you're talking about the MELT method, and it would be great to explain what is MELT. What is the MELT method?
So,
talk a little bit more. I want to show my little bag here.
Yes, I actually have some on the floor. I was melting my feet before the interview. Yeah,
I love that, and I have been playing with, especially because I sit a lot with my clients here. I'm like, we're using them under my feet and my hands.
Yes.
And I think especially now with computer and cell phone, everybody's getting a lot of problems with their thumbs. Also, it's so important to work with that. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about the
Yeah, so MELT in general is a self-care method that mimics the same types of therapeutic intervention of light touch therapy. So we use soft tools like a soft body roller that's very pliable. It has more of a rubberized material, and a number of different hand and foot therapy balls like what you just described. And what MELT is, again, is a daily self-care practice that blends mindful meditation and breath work with self-fascial manipulation type of techniques where you're doing gentle tension and compression techniques, and just adopting a practice of awareness. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for most people, is that we are flat out not aware that we are the cause of the problems that we have in our bodies.
Definitely.
And we end up, as soon as we have a problem, I always say people think they're proactive, but what they are is reactive. They do things after they have a problem rather than being proactive and preventing something. But you can prevent a lot of those common mishaps that occur as we age simply by becoming more aware of what I call common imbalances that begin to originate that don't necessarily give you pain. But if you keep these common imbalances in your body long enough, they lead to pain. And then that pain alters sensory motor control, balance, musculoskeletal activation.
I go further to say they lead to pain, and also it may lead also to autoimmune issues, because as you're saying, the lymph cannot flow, the blood cannot flow, because blood cannot flow when the fascia is also contracted. The blood vessels cannot distribute the blood in the whole area that it could to bring all the nutrients, to clean the toxins, so everything. So it might be the cause of many autoimmune disease. I cannot say that it is the cause, but it might contribute to the origin of developing an autoimmune disorder.
Indeed.
And I think awareness is great. My work is with presence. I'm like, I help people to be present. And I remember before COVID, I was going much more to the gym, and it was so interesting to see people exercise, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, wow, they have no idea where they are.
Well said. Literally.
It's literally.
And that's it, is when people, especially when people are in pain, that's why people turn to pain relievers, is they just want to tune it out. They want to get out of their body. And one of the big sayings I always say to people is, if you want to get out of pain, you have to go in your body to get out of pain. You can't, if you start seeking outside of yourself a solution for what's going on inside your body, flat out, you're already in the wrong direction. The first thing you need to do is self-evaluation, self-commitment, self-love. And I just came back from doing a big event, and one of the questions I ask people is, where are you in your self-practice? And what I mean by that is self-talk, self-love, self-trust, self-honoring, self-acceptance, any self-fill in the blank. Where are you in that process? And a lot of, again, women who have had children, they put themselves at the bottom of the totem pole. They're working on everybody else. They're worried about their job, their husbands, their wives, their boyfriends, their kids, their dogs, anything else outside of themselves. And when we have a problem, that's it, is that everyone on the top of the totem pole is actually going to suffer, because we're what's really holding the foundation together. So I believe that the more we can become aware of the body's signals to us before we have pain is the critical step. And that is part of the 4 R's protocol. The first R of MELT is reconnect, right? Is to give yourself permission to go into your body and actually sense what you feel and learn what the body is speaking to you, and learn the body language. And
the body does show, but the person many times are not even pay attention or doesn't even notice, because it's not aware. It's not
correct.
In what I work with, say aware and present, is also almost like bring your mind into the areas of your body, so that that part even can talk. Literally, thoughts even come from the parts of your body that wants to have help, for example. So let's talk about a little bit of the 4 R's. I think it's great to have people know.
Yeah, so the 4 R's protocol of MELT is simple: reconnect, rebalance, rehydrate, and release. So again, the reconnect techniques that you learn are self-assessment techniques. There are ways through either lying on your back and just resting and noticing how what we call masses and spaces, the neck would be a space, your head would be a mass, you can kind of figure that out, how they are actually relaxed on the floor. And most often when we have a lot of accumulative stress in the body, when my clients lie down on my table, they literally look like they're levitating. They're so stiff. And I'll say to them, you know, just breathe and just try to relax your shoulders. And again, it'd be like wow, I didn't realize.
And this contraction that they are levitating, in fact, they are, because they are not really allowing the body to go down. And a lot of people now, I think also after COVID, so anxious. And anxiety also brings all the body up, and the shoulders go up, the pelvis, everything goes up, and then they...
Right, but that's it. It's not so much of this part of our brain, the conscious mind. It's in that subconscious system, and when I say sub, I just mean below conscious awareness. And we call that aspect of the body the autopilot. So the autopilot are those aspects of your autonomic nervous system that support, protect, and stabilize you without your voluntary control or conscious awareness. And the second R of melt is rebalance, and so you can rebalance the regulators of stress repair and digestion in the body through conscious breathing, through gentle, subtle, undulated motions of your pelvis or your ribs to what we call differentiate regions of the body. And I use that word because I say differentiation instead of isolation, with the idea that what you're trying to do is focus, consciously focus on what's staying stable as you move, because that's not really conscious. We don't usually do that. And when we move, if we are stable, we don't think about stability. And in fact, we don't think about moving. We just get up and go get the thing we want to get, right? Until we have pain, and then we think about everything. So the rebalancing techniques are kind of an interruption in those autonomic aspects that are supposed to be supporting, protecting, and stabilizing us. And we kind of take it for granted that they're working well until we have pain. And then we realize that our stability is declining. So melt and these rebalancing techniques really do help the autonomic regulators of our body go back into baseline. Then we have the third R of melt, which is rehydrate. And what I mean by rehydrate is to move fluid flow, fluid perfusion through the fascial matrix. We do it in two ways. We use tension and compression techniques. So you can either compress local regions of your body using that soft tool, and we do 3 compression techniques called gliding, shearing, and rinsing. Gliding prepares, shearing, it's kind of like working fluid into a sponge. It creates a shearing between fascial layers. And then rinsing is kind of like flushing fluid flow in direction, just like you would push water out of a drain. Sometimes you have to kind of cup water around that drain. So that's sort of that same principle. And what we call 2-directional lengthening techniques are ways to create fascial tension in a local myofascial meridian to really cause tension, so that when we let it go, we also get that fill effect. So it's not like muscle stretching. We're not trying to make something longer, even though we call it a 2-directional lengthening technique. It's kind of a layman's term for fascial tension. And then the fourth R of melt is release. And these are decompression techniques where you learn to apply traction very gently on the spine to pull fluid flow really localized toward the spinous processes to get that activation of release in those primary spaces of your neck and low back. And then we also have the hand and foot therapy techniques where we use and apply those compression techniques along with another technique called position point pressing, which also mobilizes joints within the hands and also releases that unwanted tension in our hands and feet. And that's a big thing, that the hands and feet are really the foundation of melt. I don't think people realize how critical the sensory nerves are in the hands and feet. I mean, your world gets awfully small when you can't, grab and hold something. You lose the strength of your grip, or your feet lose that sensory reception. That is one of the key factors of low back pain, instability. That's what causes a lot of the falls in older adults, is just the sensory awareness in the feet is failing. The ankle doesn't move properly, and then you're off to the races for falling and then breaking your hip. So for anyone with autoimmune issues, most specifically, or or I mean, it could be anything, trauma, it could be back pain, but autoimmune for sure. We always start with the hands and feet. You want to go indirect before you start working directly on the body, and you want to see how your nervous system responds to getting new sensory information back to the brain from your hands and feet. And it's life-changing. I mean, we start people with Maggie Yu's group with their autoimmune people with the hands and feet, and it's like literally in a week they're like, I already feel better. And it's because we're creating a new conversation with the mind and body. And that's really the reconnection between mind, body, spirit, is to bring these aspects of ourself back together again, because daily living, just how you said, stress, life, right?
Life.
It just impacts us. I mean, you see in magazines when they say, you know, we're going to abolish stress, banish stress, eliminate stress. I'm like, life is stress. And even if you decided that's it, I'm returning my kids to the hospital where they were born, I'm divorcing the husbands and wives, and I'm going to go move to an island, there's going to be a hurricane there and your house is going to blow down. You're going to have stress there too. So you can't get around stress. Yeah. And in so many ways, stress is a good thing for the body because it challenges us. But what we
creates also resilience. Sometimes I think about, without any of this technology, without warm clothes or this and that, we are here for 60,000, 100,000 years as a human species, right? It's like this resilience is because it has been traumatic.
Yes, being born is traumatic, especially, I mean, whether you're having a C-section or you have to get your big head out of a little hole, that, you know, I mean, those cranial bones having to squish together, that's trauma in the body. And then having to bounce back. Yeah, being born is trauma. And really, I mean, I always believe that we're just spirits occupying bodies and utilizing minds to have a human experience. I mean, and I really think that it's very courageous for a spirit to choose again to come back into form and to put
this density.
Yes, exactly. To put this abundance into this tiny little thing with skin, where I think that's where a lot of people who have depression, anxiety, and trauma, they just want to break free of the body. And the thing is, there must be another way, because you can't break free of the form. You must stay. And we don't want people eliminating themselves from the human experience by choice. Instead, we want them to come together within their bodies and allow their spirit to thrive in a closed environment. And it takes a village, you know, I mean, it takes a community. I always say it's like, think of life like going down a dark road. Don't go at it alone. It's better that you bring people who bring light to your dark streets and walk with them. And that's how you get through life more abundantly and with more resilience.
Yes, so beautiful said. And I think in my work, we work with consciousness. I'm a non-dual teacher also. So what we teach is permeability. So you end up allowing yourself, but if your fascia is like this, and if you are all tied up, you really cannot have that permeability where you really feel that we are one with all, and then you're not really alone, even though you are in one body, but there is this permeability that is through you, and life happens through you, with you.
Yes. And again, you know,
not at you, that your walls of protection is to really allow that permeability to be here with one.
Yes, and that word permeability, you know, fascia is primarily made up of collagen, and collagen is kind of like, it acts like a superconductor. And so we could really consider fascia a neuromyofascial electrochemical superconducting highway. And so
I love that.
Yeah, it's just bringing everything. It's electrical, it's chemical, it's neurological, and it is vibrating. That's why the Om is so important. Using tuning forks, getting out into nature, right? Nature has a frequency. Hug a tree when you're not feeling good. You know, like there's just so many ways to get your frequency up, especially when you're feeling down. I mean, I always say if I were sad or hurt, or like when my husband passed away, I just went to the ocean. I just went to the ocean and I spoke to the ocean and I asked the ocean to please take this horrible grief from me and allow it to go back into the waters where it came. And, you know, water, trees, nature. I think that in this urban jungle we live in, we need to get back into nature. And again, we need to commune with one another. We need to feel safe in speaking about how we feel. And it's scary, you know, like having relationships is scary, right? It's like, is this person going to love me? Am I enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? You know, like, will people accept me? And I think, if you just go into life, just believing in your heart that you're good, you're worth it, and people will love you, you have nothing to fear. And anybody that's mean to you, they're just having a bad day. Don't take it personal.
I love that. Don't take it personal. And I think it's the idea of I need to be perfect to be lovable, is to release
Indeed.
that idea, because we are all imperfect beings, and that's great. We discover
beautiful?
each other.
It's awesome. I always say I make so many mistakes and I have so many flaws and I learn so much from them. I just keep finding more and keep doing it again and again. I just do different wrong things. But in every instance that I do, I learn something. And that's the beauty. I mean, that's what the human experience is about. It's about love. It's about connecting. That's the secret of life. I mean, anybody who says otherwise is wrong. The secret of life is to love. Love yourself, love one another. The Beatles had it right. Love is really all you need.
Oh, okay. So I think that's a great way to wrap up our interview. It was great, a great pleasure, and to have you here with all this wisdom sharing with us. It has been a real pleasure. So please, I want to talk to everybody to connect also with Sue Hitman and the MELT method. So you have information here below of her page and the social media. So meltmethod.com. I want to read correctly. Mm-hmm. But we have everything here below so people connect with you and also become a melter. I love the name itself, because all the rigidity in the body needs to really melt, like
that's it. It's taking a stiff, inflexible, unadaptable, unmalleable system and turning it back to what it should be, as an adaptable, malleable, changeable system. That's what melting is all about.
Yeah, indeed. It's all about melting.
Get melted. Everything is better melted. Yeah. And I mean, people can also find me on YouTube and Instagram under Melt Method. And I'm always trying to share a little bit of something. And so if somebody has a question, they can always post something there as well. We check our Instagram daily. So.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much. And for the audience, remember to tune back to our series, The Real Story of Autoimmune Disease. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.